Welcome to the Gentleman's Guide to Vampires again, I suppose, because in this video we are talking about Vampire the Masquerade Chapters. Now, I've mentioned chapters before on this channel, but I've never gone into it in great detail, and as the title of the video implies, I am going to tell all. Yes, it is a clickbait title, because this is not a channel where you get scandals, bad news, or me ranting and raving about things I don't like. It is going to be wholly positive, but I am still going to tell all, within the confines of certain NDAs. And why did I decide to do a video on chapters today? Well, there's one key reason, and it is that Flyos Games, who produced Vampire the Masquerade Chapters and Werewolf the Apocalypse Retaliation, which I happen to work on too, have got a Kickstarter going for the Rayman board game. Now, Rayman obviously isn't the World of Darkness. Rayman is a video game character, an Ubisoft character. If, like me, you played on the PSX, or PlayStation 1 as the youth call it today, you will know that Rayman was one of the first side-scrolling platformers on that platform. And I've always been a big fan of side-scrollers. I love my Metroidvanias, my Hollow Knights, my Blasphemouses, and I remember when I first played Rayman, I was at the ideal age to do so. I really loved the visuals, such a colourful game. The difficulty level was just perfect for me, and it has the right level of challenge and humour that appeals to me. Now, Rayman has, of course, gone on to various other games since the PlayStation 1 version. There's all kinds of Rayman games that exist across multiple platforms these days. And the board game that Flyos Games are putting out looks absolutely stunning. As of time of recording, and admittedly there's only about a day left to support the Kickstarter, so you would need to get in quickly if this is of interest. It's over £200,000 raised of a £28,000 target, so it's done well. But one thing I can assure you is Flyos Games make beautiful games. They are absolutely stunning, and a lot of thought, a lot of time, a lot of energy goes into them, and I don't believe Rayman is going to be any different there. Hands up, I haven't worked on this game. I've got no insight into its inner workings or any of the background behind it, but I do have confidence that Flyos Games knows how to create a stunning piece of work. So do check out the Rayman board game if you haven't. But that isn't why we're here. We are here to talk about Vampire the Masquerade Chapters. Now, anyone who is unaware of Chapters should now be informed that it is a board game that crosses RPG with tactical, almost skirmish game. It is a kind of board game where you are going to pick a character from your range of vampire clans, and each character has their own background. Each character is going to be weighted in a certain way that you build them as the chapters go on with experience. So in other words, your Malkavian and your Tremere are more likely to be intellectually strong, mentally strong. Your Ventrue and Toreador socially, and your Bruja and Gangrel physically, and of course you do also have Nosferatu in there, along with the various expansion clans, the Ministry, the La Sombra, the Giovanni, the Banu Hakim. There's lots of options in Vampire the Masquerade Chapters, and every single chapter of the game, this is where the name comes from, is a different scenario. You've got well over 30 scenarios in this game, so there's a lot of playability there, and I have had the great joy of playing it with one of my local groups recently, and it's always interesting to play a game you've co-authored because I forget what I've written, and so I come across things and I think I know the answer to this. Oh yeah, that's because I wrote it. But I've been having a lot of fun with chapters. Every single one of these chapters is different. You have a tile, you have placement of clue tokens, of counters or miniatures for any antagonists that happen to be present. If it is indeed a scenario with antagonists, they're not always. There's investigations, there's social interactions, there's combats, there's mixtures of all three. And the variety of setups, you've got your outdoorsy places, you've got your streets, your alleys, you've got your sewers, you've got your department stores, you've got your apartments, you've got your crime scenes. There's all kinds, because Chapters is absolutely filled with these scenarios, along with books that allow you to tell the story of every single one of the chapters. much like a choose-your-own-adventure or fighting fantasy game, except you are moving a miniature across a board, interacting with a clue token, flipping to a page, and it's going to pose you some kind of challenge. It'll provide you narrative. What are you looking at? It'll give you choices. You make a choice, go to the right page, and now you're interacting with it in a certain way. Make a stealth roll, make a occult roll, whatever the case happens to be. You check your character sheet, you know how many dice to roll, you try and overcome the challenge. So clearly, as players, you try to game the system. You will send your intellectual characters after puzzles, after clue tokens. You will send your hulking brutes after what appear to be combat encounters, and you'll send your social characters after people you want to schmooze, negotiate with, intimidate. But the game can surprise you. That security guard over there, yes, you could beat them in a combat and knock them out, drain them of their blood, or you could talk them into quitting their shift early, depending on the character who's speaking to them. That thing that looks like a riddle, you could just smash with your fist or boot or baseball bat if you've got the right piece of equipment, because it's a game with equipment as well. There's so many little facets to Vampire the Masquerade Chapters. And what I'm doing with this tell-all video is a very fast-paced explanation that it is a game quite unlike any other I have played. I suppose there are similarities to Betrayal I need to get it right. Betrayal, House of the Hill. I always get the name wrong on that one. Of Gloomhaven. These games where you're playing a different scenario each time, there is a linearity there in the sense of there's a story that is unfolding as the game goes on, but you can choose different paths, which means you can end up cutting out certain routes. You can basically take secret paths through, like a video game. And, there's sometimes easier ways of doing things, more challenging ways that earn you more experience, more artifacts. Sometimes you'll make sacrifices that get you better things later on down the line. And if you're a fan of Vampire the Masquerade in terms of its lore, in terms of its setting, you will probably be delighted to know that it is set in Montreal and is built off the foundations of Montreal by Night, that very popular Black Dog sourcebook for 2nd edition Vampire the Masquerade. There are certain pieces of connective tissue there. And yeah, I very much recommend it, especially now that there's an app out that comes out for Vampire the Masquerade Chapters. You can basically play it without having to necessarily flick through books. You can basically play it all off your phone or tablet or what have you. And what's more, the app is the most up-to-date in terms of errata. So I recommend that too. It's just so much fun, and it feels like playing Vampire the Masquerade in an authentic but different way. So there's that. And I said, of course, in the title and at the upfront, I'm going to tell all. And I also said that this isn't a channel where I go on about scandals or bad things or bad experiences or ranting and raving, and that's because I genuinely can't. I'm blessed to have been a part of this industry for as long as I have, to enjoy it, to make a living from it. I know not everyone is able to. I have, I guess, fallen on my feet in some ways. Obviously put the work in too, but it's there's a certain, I guess, amount of luck that goes with it. And working with Flyos Games, here's my tell-all bit, was one of the most satisfying, creatively satisfying, supportive experiences I've had in gaming, in this gaming industry. My tell-all piece is, quite frankly, that there are very few companies that are as good to their freelancers, in my personal experience, as Flyos Games were to me. They allowed me pretty much unbridled freedom to write the scenarios I wanted to in the ways I wanted to for this game. And so if you know me and you know the amount of knowledge that's rattling around in here about Vampire the Masquerade, the deep cuts, you are going to find that kind of stuff in the scenarios I've written. I've written straightforward scenarios, this sort of archetypal crime scene or covering up a masquerade breach scene as well. But more often than not, I will try putting something in that will satisfy the lore hounds out there, the people who really want that feel of immersive World of Darkness. And I've done the same with World of the Apocalypse Retaliation too. And Flyos Games have always been incredibly supportive of me doing that. I think it's, well, probably one of the reasons they hired me. But I always found the scenarios for chapters incredibly easy to write. I've always been able to write them incredibly quickly. And just being able to play with that mechanical engine, because it isn't the storyteller system. You know, you have a character sheet, you have points, and you are rolling d10s, but it isn't strictly the storyteller system, because that wouldn't translate perfectly to a board game. The mechanics that they introduce, they're basically gradients of difficulty. It is still attribute plus skill, and you are still trying to surpass a difficulty with the successes you're rolling. The ways that you can augment that with certain items and abilities. The way that you can overcome certain combats with disciplines. The way this game, it pares down disciplines, makes them more streamlined, makes them usable in ways that can only really be used in the board game, but still retains that flavour, made writing for chapters just so much fun. And working with Flyos, again, they were very supportive and encouraging and complimentary about everything that I was coming up with. So it's very difficult to walk away from a situation like that and with any kind of regret. It's more a hope that I eventually get to work with them again, which I did with Retaliation for Werewolf the Apocalypse, where I was able to do some of the same kind of thing, but, you know, different scenarios, different setups. My tell-all of chapters is, quite honestly, that you should give it a go. I can obviously never review it in a perfectly non-biased way because I worked on it, but I enjoyed it so much, and my current players, the people I play with, are enjoying it now, that it gives me confidence that this is a good game, that there are so many nuances, and the experience you will have playing through it with one coterie of characters should be different to the experience you have with a different coterie of characters. I mean, you could theoretically play this as a social band. You could play this as an entirely physical coterie or an entirely mental coterie, or mix it up. And because every single character has a story, and almost every single scenario has variations depending on the characters you're playing, so there will be encounters that you meet where it will basically say, if the Malkavian is present, this, that, and the other. You know, you can basically access this page of the book. If the Malkavian isn't present, you can't, so you don't know what's happened. So it encourages repeat play too. And in a game which has well over 30 scenarios, I think that is pretty good value for money. I've heard there's obviously people who want a game like this to be flawless, and I don't think any game is flawless. I know chapters came out, there were some errors in the books, but they've all been patched with errata on the app. As in, you know, sometimes text might have been misplaced, or a clue might have led to a dead end or something like that. It probably sounds incredibly easy to catch these things, but in a game quite as vast as this, it's very easy for a handful of them, or even two handfuls of them, to slip through the cracks. But that's why the app is there. They can update it whenever they need to, if they ever find any issues now. So the books, I've not found any issues with them yet, but you can refer to the app quite happily and get a brilliant experience from that. So yeah, that is my tell-all about Vampire the Masquerade Chapters. It is not a scandal. It is nothing that's going to break any headlines. But it is a glowing endorsement, a song of praise, if you like, for my experience with Flyos Games, who I think have an awful lot of heart. They have a huge amount of ambition. You can see it with the scope of these World of Darkness games, with Rayman as well, that they want to make games that look and feel amazing. And all I've ever picked up on working with the people there is that they all share this common mentality. They want to make the best games they can. And like all of us, sometimes they will slip up, but they just get back to it and they just keep making these wonderful, wonderful experiences in board game form. So do check out the Rayman board game if you haven't. And if you would be interested in picking up Vampire the Masquerade Chapters, I will post a link below. And there is another Kickstarter going on right now. If you missed the Rayman Kickstarter, do not despair, because the Curseborn Kickstarter is right there. And we still have well over 20 days. I am always happy to promote these Kickstarters for other companies if I believe in the product and I believe in the team that is making it. And with Rayman, I haven't played it. I've not worked on it. I can't attest to its quality, but I am sure that it is good. And likewise, I know that Curseborn is an excellent game because I worked on this one. So check it out and let me know your thoughts. If you have played any of Flower's games, board games, I would love to hear your experiences. So do comment below. Thank you very much for watching.